Okay. I know Matt might be running a little bit late. I don't think I see him on here. Yeah. So I think we can go ahead and get started if that's okay with everyone. All right. Everybody feeling good in 2022 so far? Sorry for the loud road noises if you can hear that. Okay. All right. Getting right into this. Let's see. Looking at our next projected dates based on just our usual pattern of meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for February 10th. We'll talk through the agenda there a little bit. And then the proposals here are April 14th and June 9th, which does not put us in conflict with the State Board of Ed at this time, although sometimes that shifts. Yeah,
14th of April is the Friday before Good Friday, and I think a lot of spring breaks. I don't know if that's going to throw a wrench in things. I just saw that. So
the Thursday before Good Friday or the Friday before?
it's the Thursday. So the 14th is the Thursday before Good Friday. Sorry.
We like
Yeah,
cameos. We love cameos.
Yeah, so the 15th is Good Friday. So I don't know if that would throw anything in.
Is it a snow day in Brandywine too?
Yes.
Right on. Happy snow day.
She said happy snow day.
Okay. So the Thursday before Good Friday, and then when all the spring break begins. I don't know. Does anyone have any strong feelings about that? I mean, pushing it up, I guess, a week versus, kind of competing with maybe people wanting to get an early start on spring break. Anyone have a strong feeling about that one way or another? I mean, it would, I guess what I would say is in April, I think there is a pretty good chance that we might have some significant, votes related to legislation and things like that, possibly. I don't know for sure. And we wouldn't want to not have quorum.
Right. And then the other thing is, and I can reach out to Jenna to see if the state board is going to move theirs as well.
Okay.
And
Dawn theirs would be during spring break.
Right. Yeah, I was just looking at that. And Dawn just suggested not having it.
So that would set us back to what, the 7th, which would be the week before, maybe?
Yes.
All right, let's do the 7th. And then do we see any red flags around June 9th?
June 9th is my birthday, so.
Oh.
Oh, we can celebrate you too, Haley.
That's true. Well, she's like, celebrate by running meeting.
Yeah.
That is the last day of school in Brandywine, but not that that means anything.
Okay. I mean, it's definitely a busy time of year for our educators and administrators.
I feel like earlier in June is better than later in June, though.
June 2nd, maybe. Okay.
I don't think there's that much of an issue with the 9th.
I think the 9th is going to be okay, but I would lean on.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine.
I think
I was just putting it out there.
Yeah, the 2nd might be more difficult actually than the 9th.
Okay.
The last day, the last day is not as difficult. It's probably a week before the last day.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, so we'll stick to
I think the 9th will be okay too. I think earlier in the month would have been better than later in the month.
Okay.
So I wouldn't want to move it any later.
Oh, you wouldn't want to push it back, and got it. Okay, yeah, people will start to disappear. All right, so February 10th for our agenda. I guess we normally give sort of generalized updates about what our work groups are up to, which I wouldn't expect to have really heavy ones at this point. Or we can talk through our work group updates next to see if I'm wrong about that. I would suspect, we should have some direction, I think, from Matt and I to talk about what's going on. I mean, that's sort of JFC the first sort of look at JFC. We'll know what the governor's recommended budget is by that point, for example, so we can talk through maybe relevant points from the recommended budget to our work. I think could probably be a significant part of that agenda. And any sort of, efforts we feel that we need to make to follow through on or build upon that. we can certainly sort of brief the group on that. So that would be my, in terms of the timeline, what comes most to mind for me is to sort of focus on the budget at that time. Other,
Something
Okay.
that comes to mind for me is I'm thinking by February 10th, when it comes to the work that's rolling out with the collaborative, has there been the conversation of, these are the intentions of the collaborative, and this is what we have learned and are learning from the respective work groups in the Reading Consortium. I just wonder if there's an opportunity for us to hear from um, gosh, why am I forgetting his name right now?
maybe Jim and John.
Is it an opportunity for us to hear from Jim on the updates on the collaborative? And at the same time, is it time for us to share maybe some of the key areas from the reports, that the recommendations that we've generated, and the direction of work groups that are underway, to say, where's the opportunity for the work of the consortium to actually align with things that we are saying need to happen? So is there a connection between the working plan as it evolves,
Yeah.
embedding and bringing to life some of the things that we've talked about in our reports? I just wonder if that's not something that would be timely around then, given the time frame for kicking this off in September.
Yeah.
It seems like planning should be well underway or really kickstarting. And I think there's a window of time where we can either have it be informed by the Reading reports, or we miss the window entirely and somebody's going to have to hit the ground running with developing the actual plan.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I think, maybe we can kind of note that currently as, collaborative update or something like that, to be able to
Something like
see
that.
update.
Yeah. Mhm.
I think the expectation is that the boards will have voted on their willingness to explore their participation. So those votes should be done by February 10th, I think.
Okay. Okay.
So that would be sort of news they could share. I mean, I think
Okay.
there'll certainly be news they can share around that.
Okay.
So I think that's a great idea.
Mhm.
And then, certainly there's a lot of growing buzz around that too, I think, in the community. So perhaps we can have a further opportunity for questions. I think it's probably still premature for the consortium to be weighing in on one position or another, but I guess we'll see in the coming weeks if that changes. In terms of our endorsing this or having any, or not endorsing it or having sort of recommendations around the direction of it. But I think there should be, and the last time we had them present to us was November.
I guess
There
so.
should be significant updates.
Mhm.
In one of my recent conversations this week, I believe their timetable is going to be changed.
Is that right?
My understanding that, they've heard that message loud and clear. And so the timeline of next steps may be adjusting. And actually what John said is that in the slide, they had already started adjusting it in the slide deck that they're sharing. So I
Right.
don't know if that has made, I think the most recent presentation I saw the governor do was on DTV. And I think that was like Monday, maybe, or Tuesday.
Okay.
But I think that they are making an adjustment with the time frame.
Well, then
And
we're
was that
definitely
like
going to want to do
year by an academic year, like starting in 23 school year instead?
So they didn't give the actual new dates to me.
Gotcha. Mhm.
What he said is that they had heard that and they were making an adjustment. What it was also said is that it wasn't it wasn't really firmly stated that that was the timeline that was kind of put out there. But every presentation I have seen, it sounded pretty firm to me that they had an initial timeline.
Yeah, for me too. I thought that was pretty much like almost non-negotiable is how it sounded in the
Exactly.
presentations I've heard. Does anyone have a copy of the latest deck for that? I'm trying to keep up with it, but
I should be getting one within by the end of the week. Well, I guess today's Friday, but hopefully today, and I can share it with the group.
Awesome.
I looked on the governor's website and the presentation that's up there looks like the same timeline that I saw in the presentations in the city. So I don't think adjustment's been made yet
okay.
on that one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the one I saw as well. And I just wanted to know if maybe this latest one would have something different.
Right.
I
Ray,
haven't
you
seen
want-
one with the different dates either, but what they stated is that they had updated it. So I don't know if they've
Yes.
actually publicly shared it yet
Yeah,
or not,
okay.
but that was the one I've requested.
All right.
Okay, well, that'll be interesting to see how that evolves. Ray, you wanted to say something?
Oh, good morning. I was just going to share that the Wilmington Center leaderships sent a set of recommendations to the governor and his team. And we have a meeting right after this one this morning. So if there's any updates that they're sharing publicly or or whatever we can share, I'll send you a quick note. But they're definitely adjusting in a nutshell, our recommendation is that that the 2022-2023 school year be an intensive planning year. It doesn't stop the train. It makes it more stable and increases the probability that that the network will be more successful by taking the time to plan. And I mean, everybody, I don't care what stakeholder group that responded, gave that message loud and clear about the time and the ambiguity that needs to have a lot more concreteness to it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, especially if we're putting it in the hands of the districts to do the planning, they need time to actually do that planning. That's more than a couple of months. So is that, it sounds like that may be resolved by February 10th, you know, and possibly doesn't need any kind of, you know, recommendation from Reading. But maybe that's something, and I say this sort of as a note for Kelly and Haley, for us to keep in the back of our minds, if it seems for some reason that it's unresolved, might be something that we might want to weigh in on as well as a consortium. But it sounds like that probably is not necessary.
Well, I think that it'll become more clear once they give their most recent updates in terms of the direction and the path forward.
Okay.
I think there's always, I mean, I think that even though it is to, you know, a lot and nuanced and complex, the invitation for ongoing input is a good one, and I think that we should all continue to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And well, and to that point, I'm going to skip around in the agenda a little bit since this has come up as a significant part of our agenda for February. You know, we've got the document with questions from social determinants. And we wanted to see if we could get, you know, a document that responds directly to that from the governor's office. It seems like that might be, I think that seems to me that would be a great goal for us to have for that meeting, perhaps, or in the weeks between now and then, if that's possible. So it sort of gives them guidelines for what we want to be hearing from them. And then in terms of the notes that we have from info sessions, Haley, do we feel like that's in a format that is something that we want to share with the full consortium?
Not yet. The school
Okay.
board meeting ones are, but not the info sessions.
Okay.
But by the time of the meeting, probably, yeah. Or
Okay.
week before or something.
So maybe that's something we could share as homework in the week before the February 10th meeting, just to get people's minds focused. And yeah, would you like me to reach out to John Sheehan about the Q&A document, or is that something you guys are having a conversation with John or Jim about yet?
Well, Jim presented at the social determinants meeting and answered sort of the questions that we had in the document we created for that meeting, but we haven't followed up with him about a specific Q&A document.
That would sort of come from them as opposed to us having to do legwork on that.
I think
Is
so.
that
I guess,
something you're comfortable asking Jim about?
yeah, I think so. I guess I'm a little confused about what exactly would be asking him for.
I think we just want, I mean, I guess we've had verbal responses to questions, but I think we're looking for kind of something that people can use as a easy reference and answers to those questions. I feel like that's come up in past meetings that we had talked about kind of serving and this role of providing that to people, but then I think the conclusion we drew is that's better would be better to ask that of the governor's office than to do that on their behalf. Just to kind of keep the divisions clear. So if they could document that in some way, that would be great. Maybe they don't want to, but I think it's worth asking.
Sure, I'll email him and I'll copy you and Matt.
Okay, bumping back to agenda ideas. The only other thing that comes to mind, something that Matt and I have been talking about, wanting to showcase what some of the resources that we secured last year is actually doing on the ground in the schools. I don't know if that the meeting itself is a space for that. I think we're trying to find, and the Omicron surge has tripped us up a bit, trying to find space to do that outside of a meeting agenda, but just maybe sort of as a footnote. I think that's something that we're going to be trying to do in the coming month. We were planning to do sort of like a press conference event about the expanded pre-K seats and that type of thing. You know, I don't know if we're looking at doing something virtual, but whatever we do, I'm sure that we're going to want to note that somehow in that meeting, either to reflect upon it or maybe to indicate that it's coming up. Okay. So, all right, let's get into work group updates. Maybe they're just scheduling type updates, but I will let you guys tell me. So social determinants, I know Ray, you're here. I wasn't sure if I saw Jeff or not. Oh, Matt, you're here now too. Anything, or wait, is Ray still here? Did she go to her? She might have popped. Okay.
I'm
So
still
we-
here. I was
Oh.
looking to, I was scrolling to see if Jeff was on.
Yeah. Oh, I
So
can't even see you anymore. I don't know what's going on with my, anyway, go ahead.
the planning for the January meeting has been good. We will have Dr. Terry Lawler and a few members of her team that will be updating us on the trauma-informed work that she is leading. She is also working with Dr. Adrian Peoples to begin taking a look at what kind of public source data around SEL can be collected and shared to see, so we have a better sense of in aggregate how students are faring based on the different inputs and initiatives and supports that are being developed. And then part two of that conversation is a broader conversation so that the social determinants work group can be guided by Dr. Peoples, and there's another person that runs a data service center so that we can start understanding what are the initial steps in order to build this public facing dashboard to as a strategy to track our progress towards achieving equity for Wilmington students. And so that's the conversation for January and February and
That's great.
probably March.
Okay, so really the follow through on the data dashboard piece.
Right.
That's
And
great.
and Dr. Rouser, your input around, you know, the framing and the persistent asking of the questions, how does the work of these Reading and our work groups align and connect with the proposed Wilmington Schools Collaborative? So we should keep asking those questions as we proceed.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's good, especially in the background of all these other sort of governance conversations that are happening to give us that sense of, you know, what are we measuring and why and to what end. It sounds great. Anything else? I think that sounds super interesting. I will try to keep up with those meetings. Any questions for social determinants? Okay, Chuck, I think you're up. So pretty thorough email go out about what settlement's working on, but I'll let you speak to it.
Thank you. So in addition to what's already in the agenda here, that we submitted the RFP memo to DOE, and we do have a meeting on January 24th. We wanted to report out that we have noted that the ombudsperson RFP has been awarded by the state. They were, it was awarded to the Parent Information Center of Delaware. We also know it as PIC. We are reaching out to PIC to invite them to do maybe a 15, 20-minute overview in our work group, settlement work group meeting, to us and the public on, what they think so far about how they're going to implement that, what services and so forth. Just anything that they can report out to us. We also, at the January 24th meeting, we're going to talk about, we had this idea to do some kind of a rating or grading or rubric of the efforts of the state in general to implement the things in the settlement. So we're going to discuss that further on how we can help do our evaluation of those efforts. And besides that, we're just looking forward to the governor's recommended budget coming out so we can take a look at what's in that, and hopefully we have more good news for the students of the city and of Delaware. Thank you.
Right on. Great. You guys are doing great work. And I'm very happy because I know we talked a lot at the end of last year about how important the follow through it was going to be to actually accomplishing our goals. And I feel like we are actually doing, putting our money where our mouth is. So that's awesome. Educators and governance, I think I can speak to, and Kelly or, Haley, you guys can chime in if you want in terms of what we think the path forward is there. The educators work group, obviously we spoke about this at the recent meetings, but they have a very positive path forward in terms of the remainder of the money that was designated for RFPs being available, in addition to some of the money that we shifted from our one-time pot of funds for them to work with us, and the money folks about how we would like to deploy those funds. So getting a more direct access on that spending plan. So that's just in the works. And I think, we should have some substantive updates on that, I think, for the consortium meeting, which would, I think, be great. But so they're doing their own version of the follow through in terms of just making sure funds are getting where the spirit of that work group would like to see that land. So that's good. And then I think, as we heard the last meeting in terms of what governance is doing, there are co-chairs there. I think the next substantive step is the finalization and filing of the bill to give redistricting powers again, to sort of renew that so that Reading can really meaningfully begin the work, I think, of convening that conversation around what does a redistricting plan look like, or really preliminarily, I think, what kind of research is needed to support the development of such a plan. So, but I think, right now we've got the early seeds of, a structure there with the co-chairs, and the next step is just reissuing that legislation. So that is not filed yet. But I'm chatting with Representative Chikwocha about getting that done. I would expect to see that filed before the end of the month. Again, Omicron is sort of adjusting the schedule of days where legislation is actually being voted on this month. So whether or not it actually makes it to the floor in January, which initially would have been a hope, it's probably a little less likely, but we will see. Any questions on either of those items? Okay, good stuff. So what's underneath Bloomington Learning Collaborative? Oh, okay. So that was like a surprise. I was like waiting to see, do we have more to talk about, or are we going into public comment? Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns about any of the prior agenda items? Great. As always, everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing what they said they would do, which I think is comforting and a great way to start 2022. I don't think we have any members of the public here to comment. So I guess with that, oh, wow, we did great. It's not even 11 o'clock yet. All right. So with that said, I think we've got our notes on the upcoming dates for meetings. We can probably notice or, do what we do in terms of all of those. And then start plugging in, those agenda items and doing legwork on that. So just let me know, Kelly and Haley, what I can do to support getting that agenda in place, and any efforts that need to be done to support that. And I think we're in good shape. Look forward to seeing what our work group meetings this month generate.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, everybody, have a great day.
Bye. You too.
Bye. Thank
Have a
you.
good weekend. Thanks.